So I'm making a GoFundMe for those who are interested in helping me out, helping my family out. And the goal of this GoFundMe is to raise enough funds to where we can move to Argentina. So if we reach the goal, expect to see a lot of travel videos and a lot of blogs about my experiences in another country, which is going to be something very, very new to me. I don't remember last time I've been in another country. It's been so long. I was a little child. So that would be interesting to see. And if we don't raise the funds, at least whatever we get is gonna help us pay for the childbirth, the childcare expenses that we're gonna be having here. So that's the one thing we will have to do.
David clearly implies the goal of the GoFundMe is to relocate to Argentina. However, if the goal is not met, any money raised will go towards either childcare or medical expenses. I say or because David himself is either unsure or is aware they will use the money for childcare expenses only. I will replay the clip.
See, and if we don't raise the funds, at least whatever we get is gonna help us pay for the childbirth, the childcare expenses that we're gonna be having here.
Notice how he corrects himself from saying childbirth to childcare. Both are very distinctive. A quick Google search will tell you childcare includes food, clothing, housing, and education, amongst other expenses. Medical or childbirth expenses are unrelated to that of childcare. Now, let's have a look at the GoFundMe fundraiser. The title, "We Need Help with Medical Bills and Childbirth Expenses," suggests indeed the funds will be going towards medical needs, including the child delivery. There is no mention of childcare or the move to Argentina. The title contradicts the goal of the fundraiser, which is to move to Argentina or help with childcare expenses. Here it clearly states the purpose of the fundraiser. In similar terms, it states the intention of this fundraiser is to relieve him and his poor wife from high debts in the coming years, prevent them living in poverty, and preventing them from losing all their rights and the capability to change their situation. I want to point out throughout Western Europe and Scandinavia, Sweden is one of the most socialist far-left country of them all. There is no question his immigrant wife Juliana Romina Alfaro will lose her rights so long as there is a leftist or socialist government in power. This is a chess piece played by David to receive more sympathy and therefore more donations. And we all are aware they had the options, the choice to do what is best for their circumstances. But how did that go? They are afraid of losing their future options to change their situation. Yet when their actions presented them with options regarding their pregnancy, what did they do? Will they make the right decisions for themselves in the future that they were unable to do now? This is the consequence of their choice that they could have prevented, but now they should deal with it on their own. Scrolling further down, we can see the fundraiser is only labeled with the tag medical. We have heard David say the conclusive aim of this GoFundMe is to raise enough to move to Argentina. Yet how is the want of moving to Argentina categorized as medical? He should have added relevant tags that express their desire to move to Argentina, or more appropriate, remove the medical tag altogether. As according to David, the funds will go towards the childcare expenses that also have nothing in relation to medicine. Now, let's have a look at good examples of medical fundraisers on GoFundMe. At first glance, we can see the recipients for these fundraisers all have had or presently have serious medical, life-threatening diseases or illnesses. Victor was diagnosed with ALS, that stands for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Symptoms include muscle weakness, difficulty breathing, that could later induce respiratory failure, and speech difficulties. Treatment includes physical therapy. The aim of their fundraiser was to cover travel costs, pay for the treatment and the supplements. On the other hand, Joe, a pet sitter and passionate animal lover, was the victim of a hit and run whilst commuting to work on his bicycle. He spent time in the ICU, struggling with his oxygen levels and blood clots within the lungs. He subsequently underwent collarbone surgery. Joe required donations because unfortunately he did not have health insurance to fund his treatments. Young and brave Andrea was diagnosed with breast cancer earlier this year. The treatment cost is covered, however it became expensive for her to travel to Boston, Massachusetts every week. This includes paying for an accommodation nearby and the obvious living expenses incurred each day of her visit. That is why her family decided to open a fundraiser in her name. She herself stands against any fundraising for herself. Now, what is the common denominator and factors that make them suitable medical fundraisers? Firstly, all three of the recipients met with unexpected circumstances that were out of their control and reach. Angela had no control of the cancer developing in her body, nor the expenses incurred. Neither did Joe expect such a horrific and traumatic incident to take place whilst happily cycling to work one morning. He had no control to prevent the incident or the injuries he will sustain. Receiving these donations was an urgency, an emergency, so that they can quickly and effectively receive treatment and be on their way to recovery. Starting treatment as early as possible prevented their situations from becoming worse, terminal, or reaching end of life. Many of the organizers of such fundraisers regularly update supporters on details of where exactly the donations are being spent, costs, plans, photographs, recovery, and much more. This not only builds trust with donors, but also shows true appreciation and respect for their contributions. After all, income is hard-earned. David's fundraiser, in comparison, does not fit the bill. Is pregnancy life-threatening? In extremely rare circumstances, pregnancy can be life-threatening for the woman, yet that cannot be known until delivery in most cases. Is pregnancy seen as a grave medical condition? Not even close. It is mostly a serene period in a woman's life, bringing life and love into the world. It is a natural phenomenon occurring once the reproductive process is complete. His wife, Juliana, an Argentinian immigrant, claims to be suffering from type 3 Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, a hypermobile form of the rare genetically inherited condition affecting connective tissues and joints in the body. EDS can cause complications during birth and can also cause a premature delivery. However, a study on 8 pregnant women with hypermobile EDS, published in the Obstetric Medicine Journal in 2018, suggests that pregnancy is overall well tolerated with the hypermobile type. Furthermore, because of the joint laxity, whereas unaffected women may struggle to birth their babies in unusual positions, women with heads may have no problem pushing in odd postures. But is EDS life-threatening? According to the National Center for Advancing Translational Sciences, hypermobile EDS is considered the least severe subtype. The Cleveland Clinic website reports that most types of EDS do not affect or lower life expectancy, apart from the vascular type. Juliana also claims to be epileptic, amongst other claims of illnesses. Research will inform you that the majority of women diagnosed with epilepsy carry the fetus to full term without suffering any seizures or other complications. Although in a small number of cases EDS and epilepsy can present certain complications during pregnancy, we cannot be certain if Juliana is affected or if she has been diagnosed at all with these conditions without medical evidence. Looking back at the fundraiser, there is also no mention of these conditions that can have an impact on a small percentage of women during pregnancy. But According to David, the funds will either go towards the move to Argentina or childcare. Are either of those life-threatening? What do you think? Is it life-threatening if they don't move to Argentina in time or as quick as possible? Surely their lives are much more likely to be in danger in Argentina compared to Sweden. Yes, not having enough money for childcare, especially in terms of nutritious food, or in many cases like David's, no food at all, can cause malnutrition and, in extreme cases, eventually death. But why birth a child at all where you are not independently capable to provide them with a good life? A healthy life that every child deserves? This is very selfish, knowing it is preventable and therefore controllable to make a child suffer in any way. It is generally sinful in all religions and beliefs to cause a child to suffer when it is clearly preventable. Talking about control, was the pregnancy preventable or controllable? That is not hard to guess. Yet he associated the pregnancy with fate.
Near future. That was the plan. However, fate had different plans, and now she is expecting children.
The official definition of fate is the development of events outside a person's control. Yet we all know every pregnancy is controlled. It is dependent on your actions, whether it is by choice or by mistake. Let's rewind and watch another clip.
They told us that my wife was allowed to travel to Sweden during the process, as long as she attended her hearing. Because when you make an application to be a resident, then you have like a hearing, kinda. I don't really know the exact details, but you need to like go on some kind of investigation hearing.
David doesn't know the exact details, yet his life depended on this. He is funding her migration to Sweden, but doesn't know the exact details. It is ironic how, if he knew the exact details or bothered to do research, this whole situation could have been prevented. Or maybe he did do the research, but decided to lie in order not to take any accountability. Because that is one of the actions he never takes: responsibility and accountability. Now let's move on to the final factor: the state of emergency. But first, let's define the word emergency. An emergency is a serious, unexpected, and often dangerous situation requiring immediate action. Like it was for Victor, Joe, and Angela. But where is the emergency in David's case? Pregnancy is most definitely not an emergency, and so isn't the desire to move to Argentina to travel and make vlogs on food and culture. How is a desire, a want, an emergency? Since when has a want become a necessity? And that too requiring immediate action. Acquiring funds for childcare is not an emergency either. They are generally saved for or worked for over a period of time, so long as the baby has not arrived and a person is out of funds, in which case too the person should not be reproducing. What is the urgency? Let's replay a clip from part 1.
Why not make a GoFundMe? I've never been a big fan of, I don't like asking for money. It's just not part of me. I would only do that if it was like a super crisis, and me having bills. The thing is, I will eventually pay those bills. It's just gonna be like very shit for a couple of months, but I would like survive. It's like just a hard time, but it's like no one is gonna die from me having bills. So I'm not very fond of that, and I feel bad making like, oh hey, here's a GoFundMe, give me your money so that I can go and start my life over, like with my wife over here. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. For me, I just leave my links in the description, and the people who like the people who really like my content and want to help out, it's there for them.
So in David's terms, the pregnancy, the childcare bills, the childbirth or moving to Argentina, depending on where the funds are going, is a super crisis, an emergency. This also means someone is going to die, according to David's reasons on why he will start a GoFundMe. So the question is, who is dying? What is the super crisis? Is it that you're going to be in debt? But didn't you say you eventually pay the debts off, even if it is an extremely rough time? And are you not receiving financial help elsewhere, as you claimed 4 months ago? Viewing the fundraiser, we can see they have updated the donors and supporters only twice. Twice since 7 months, since the fundraiser was launched. That is on average every 3.5 months. A season passes with every 3 months. But we can see they have not updated the fundraiser since June. Over 5 months ago. Where is the appreciation within these 5 months? Where are the updates for the medical bills, the ultrasound bill, any items purchased to help with childcare, etc.? They are non-existent. Where are the funds going? Donors have only been provided with an appreciation for their contributions, but is this appreciation genuine? We know they have been receiving financial aid elsewhere since the last update. How much are they receiving exactly? How much more do they require to be raised on GoFundMe? When will the fundraiser end? It may be that David does not require funds from GoFundMe no longer, and they're both lining their pockets, taking advantage of the extra income. I, like many others, do not see other campaigners laughing, smiling, being light-hearted at all whilst pitching for a medical fundraiser. It is often a very daunting, stressful time, especially if they're being organized by the recipient themselves or by family members.
Expect to see a lot of travel videos and a lot of blogs about my experiences in another country, which is going to be something very, very new to me. I don't remember last time I've been in another country. It's been so long. I was a little child. So that would be interesting to see.
Thus, has the fundraiser in reality been launched due to a crisis, an emergency, a life and death situation? Is it really a medical fundraiser? Why couldn't the fundraiser be labeled with a more relevant tag? As expected, it seems David tagged the fundraiser as a medical one, simply to receive more attention, more sympathy, to make their situation seem like more of an emergency, to victimize himself and his wife. The almost clickbait title of the fundraiser, mixed with the inconsistencies and lack of fund whereabouts, should prove this. All done in hopes of receiving more donations. With all these inconsistencies, lack of updates, and the blatant lies and illusions related to the medical tag and the pregnancy associated to fate, how can one trust where the donations are going? For all we know, it is highly likely all the funds are going straight into his pockets for a new game, gizmos, maybe a Netflix subscription, or all the other unnecessary expenditure he has a track record in, and which he cannot normally afford. Once they began receiving financial aid for their medical or childcare expenses, why did they not update the fundraiser? Was it not their duty to update the fundraiser as soon as their situation changed, as to not deceive and respect their supporters? The funds given by another source, such as a financial institution or the government, would most likely be given in full, albeit in installments, as they've only reached 10% of their target. This is nowhere near the target amount David claimed he required. If so, where are the GoFundMe donations being spent? Where is the evidence of the amount each medical procedure or childcare-related item would cost? How did David calculate this amount? It is possible he attempted to extort more funds than that was required, but was unsuccessful as there have been very little donations compared to his expectations. Although their situation was of their own making and their use of a medical fundraiser was not genuine due to a contradiction of the fundraiser goals, there is nothing to say they cannot create a fundraiser at all, so long as they're honest and create a fundraiser relevant to their situation. So long as they are not cheating, self-victimizing, attempting to gain more sympathy to further their gains. An example would be to create a general or more personal fundraiser to help with their move to Argentina. Juliana could possibly receive help or donations if she is honest about her health conditions and medical history in relation to her pregnancy. Honesty is essential. However, is being pregnant a good decision, considering she claims to have a genetic condition where there is a possibility her offspring could inherit and suffer the same, alongside their financial struggles. We can only wish people would make the right choices for themselves as to avoid debts and poverty and all other misfortunes, to avoid taking the hard-earned income of others, to avoid the misleading, the self-victimization, and the pretense of being a noble person, to start taking responsibility for their actions. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.